In this lesson, we will look at a strategy for solving quadratic inequalities. Let's start by solving the inequality x squared plus 2x minus 8 is greater than or equal to 0. We will rewrite the inequality, if necessary, as a quadratic function f of x on one side of the inequality and 0 on the other. We already have 0 on one side of our inequality, so it isn't necessary to rewrite. However, I will rename the function on the left side of my inequality as f of x. So f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, and then we will be solving for when f of x is greater than or equal to 0. Next, we will find zeros of f and place them on the number line with the number 0 above them. Okay, so f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, which factors into x plus 4 times x minus 2. Setting f of x equal to 0, I will find the zeros of my function. The zeros are x equals negative 4 and x equals 2. And we will place these zeros on the number line above negative 4 and 2. So above negative 4 on the number line, I have a 0. Above 2 on the number line, I have a 0. My f of what's going on with f of x on the number line appears above the number line. Below the number line is the corresponding x values. Next, we will choose a real number called a test value in each of the intervals determined in the previous step. Okay, so in my first interval, from negative infinity to negative 4, I will choose a test value of x equals negative 6. I can choose any x value to the left of negative 4 I want to, but in this case I chose negative 6. In the second interval, from negative 4 to 2, I will choose x equals 0. And in the third interval, from 2 to infinity, I will choose x equals 3. Let's next determine the sign of f of x for each test value and write that sign above the corresponding interval. So here we have our number line with our 3 intervals, and I will start with the first interval in which I have a test value of x equals negative 6. To determine the sign of f of x in that interval, I will find f of negative 6, which is equal to negative 6 plus 4 times negative 6 minus 2. I don't actually need to find f of negative 6. I just need the sign of f of x in this interval. So negative 6 plus 4 is is negative, times negative 6 minus 2 is negative. A negative times a negative will give me positive f of x values in that first interval. In the second interval, we use a test value of x equals 0. F of 0 is equal to 0 plus 4, which is positive, times 0 minus 2, which is negative. A positive times a negative value gives me negative f values for f of x in the second interval. In the third interval, where x equals 3 is our test value, f of 3 equals 3 plus 4, positive, times 3 minus 2, positive. Positive times a positive will give us positive f of x values in the third interval. We will choose the intervals which correspond to the correct sign to solve our inequality. So here's the number line with the corresponding signs and zeros above. We're looking for where x squared plus 2x minus 8, or f of x, is greater than or equal to 0. This is going to happen where the function f of x is equal to 0 at negative 4 and 2, and also where the function is greater than 0, or where we have plus signs for f of x. So the solution here will be all x values from negative infinity to negative 4, including negative 4, union all x values from 2 to infinity, including 2. This will be our solution. Notice that here we have a graph of y equals f of x, and the intervals where the graph is above or equal to y equals 0 are the same intervals as those on the number line where f of x is positive or 0. Let's next solve the inequality x squared is less than x. I will start by getting a 0 on the right side of my inequality by subtracting x from each side. And then we now have f of x is equal to x squared minus x. We're going to solve for where f of x is less than 0. And I will factor f of x into x times x minus 1, set f of x equal to 0 to get zeros of x equals 0 here and of x equals 1. Okay, so I have my zeros for the inequality. I will put those on a number line. So here is my x number line. I have 0 and 1 on here. And I want to put a big 0 above each of those because I know that my function f of x, which is x squared minus x, is equal to 0 at those points. I will next find some test values to see what's going on in each of these intervals. In the first interval, let's choose a test value of x equals -1/2. And so remember, f of x is x times x minus 1. So if I find f of -1/2, I will have -1/2 times -1/2 minus 1. So I have a negative times a negative, giving me positive f of x values in the first interval. In the second interval, let's try x equals 1/2. So f of 1/2 will be equal to 1/2 times 1/2 minus 1. So I have a positive times a negative, giving me negative f of x values in the second interval. In the third interval, I'll let x equal 2 for a test value. F of 2 will be equal to 2 times 2 minus 1, which will be a positive times a positive, giving me positive f of x values in the third interval. So to solve f of x, where f of x is less than 0, I will not include the zeros this time because we have strictly less than 0. And what I am looking for actually is minus signs here. I'm looking for where f of x is less than 0. And so my solution for this inequality will be from 0 to 1, x values between 0 and 1, not including 0 and 1. Try on your own. Solve the inequality. 3x squared plus 5x is greater than or equal to 2.